Yo, what's up YouTube? Today I'm going to be going over my Season 5 support guide. So, I was actually doing this on stream one day, and, them patch notes came out, and I just wasn't really happy with it, so I'm just going to try to go over it all. So, unlike previous versions of my build guide, I'm going to split this up a little bit, so I'm going to go over the start of the game in this section, so it'll be your blessing that you choose, potions, do you start with a tier 1 of an item, do you get boots, that type of stuff, and then I will do another video with relics and consumables, so wards, oracle chalice, that type of stuff, and then I will do a final video, which is a final section of the video, where I just go over kind of the core build, situational items, that type of stuff, and that'll be probably the longest part. So, we'll start off with the SPL is set to start in about a week from now, a little bit longer. So it's supposed to start March 20th. I'm recording this on the 11th. So with that, right now, the patch I'm on right here is 5.3. So some of the updates from 5.4 you won't see. So for example, Blink is a 100-second cooldown. It is actually going to be 120. So I'm going to judge this off of the first SPL patch, which will be 5.4. So even if an item says, 100-second blink cooldown, just know I'll be talking about the version of it in 5.4. There's a few other item changes that are pretty impactful in 5.4 that affect support a good bit. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through this. So anyways, start of the game, we are going to go over everything. So the first thing that we have to go over are the blessings. So the 5 conquest blessings are Guardians, Warriors, Mages, Assassins, and Hunters. So, are all these blessings viable? Do you start with different blessings on different characters? Do you start in the jungle? Do you start in lane? All that type of stuff I am going to try to answer in this section of the video. So, to start off, we'll just go over what each blessing does. Guardian's blessing is basically just your Watcher's equivalent: health, prots, mana, and health regen off kills, 5 MP5, and then 3 gold minion per assist. So if you compare this to Watchers of last year, all the stats are pretty similar with the exception of last year it used to give you 10 HP and 6 mana on minion restore, and it used to give you 5 gold, I think, per minion kill. It was either 5 or 4, I think it was 5. So it actually was a little bit better. However, you have the, role quest upgrade, which is you gain 4 GP5 off of completing the Guardian's Blessing. So it's kind of like Midas Boots passive of old seasons, so Season 1 and before, I think that was the thing. So that's your Guardian's Blessing. Warriors, just basically tanky. It has 100 health, same as Guardians, kind of like a mini Vanguard passive with the 3 reduction of all sources of damage, and then a mini Glad Shield with the 40 health and mana restore, and then you get 15 stacks from either damaging or killing people, and you get 15 of each prot. So overall, it would be 10 more prot than Guardians, and you'd get the little Gladiator Shield thing as well as the damage reduction, but you lose all the gold, you lose all the MP5, all the creep sustain, all that type of stuff. Mages, pretty much infinite mana ability damage, and then you get into cooldown. Assassin's Blessing, just sustain in the jungle, and then you get 10 pen. And then Hunter's Blessing, just basic attack damage, pretty much infinite mana. And then the bonus to auto attacks, both attack speed and bonus attack damage. So, when the heck do you buy all these? And are all of them viable? So, first off, something to go over is mana sustain. This was something that was an issue at the start of the season. It was a very concentrated effort, kind of, to lower sustain in lane for pretty much every role, both mana and health. All of these starter items, however, for support, will pretty much give you infinite mana, with the exception of Warrior's Blessing, because it only gives you 40 mana per 10 seconds if you keep it procced constantly. And if you compare that to 5 MP5, 10 MP5, as well as the restore, creep restore on this, and then the jungle sustain, and then the 2 MP5 per 10%. All of these will give you more mana sustain. Because of that, I don't really think Warriors is that great. I don't think that going this item really benefits you that much. I think if you want to go for an aggressive laning phase, that you are better off kind of supplementing that aggression with damage, either from mages or from Hunter's Blessing, rather than warriors. In my opinion, testing out warriors, it just really hasn't translated into elite at all. I'd say you definitely do feel tankier than if you had Guardian's Blessing, but pretty much every game I would have preferred to have Guardian's Blessing. I think you lose a good bit of gold having to buy mana pots with Warrior's Blessing, and also I think there's an argument to be made where if you have to go something like Warrior's Blessing plus, you know, we'll say, you know, 4 health pots and 2 mana pots, or 3 mana pots or something like that, I would argue that you're actually tankier by going Guardian's Blessing and then switching out these mana pots for multi potions, or even going like Guardian's Blessing, Health Chalice, and then healing potions. I think you'll feel tankier in a lane than you will with Warriors. So I don't really think Warriors is that great. I think especially if you're learning support, I would kind of eliminate that one for yourself. So then you kind of get down to 4. I'm just going to move it all up to the same row. Going on, you have, I guess I'll go over Hunter's Blessing. There's really only one god that I think does super well with Hunter's Blessing, and keep in mind when I say that, I'm kind of speaking of support in kind of like a traditional sense, or how you would want to play it in ranked consistently to try to either climb the leaderboard or that type of stuff. Of course, I'm sure you could run like, you know, Osiris support with Hunter's Blessing and go horrific and cheese them and get kills and get ahead and win a rank game. You know, I'm not going to doubt that, but at the same time, that's not really... That's kind of you're just cheesing a win more than you're playing support, if that makes sense. I don't really want to evaluate that type of stuff. So as far as traditional support goes, I feel the only god that can really take advantage of Hunter's Blessing is Sylvanas, because that 15 basic attack damage will apply to every single creep or every single enemy that he hits. This makes his level 1 clear really, really, really insane. Obviously, you lose a lot of tankiness for doing that. You lose the 100 health, you lose the 5 prots. If I could just hover over this and have it show it, that'd be fantastic. But yeah, you lose the health, you lose the 5 prots, you lose the gold, you lose all that. But you can get very far ahead with this. I think if you want a damage relic on Sylvanas, you probably do want Hunter's Blessing. It will add up to more damage. Also, the other thing to keep in mind with all these blessings, I'd say by maybe 6 minutes in the game, no matter what, you should pretty much have these stacked. Maybe Hunters and Mages will take you a little bit longer than that, depending on how you end up playing. But for the most part, you really have to value the passive in these blessings. And I think other than on Sylvanas and maybe a few other gods, the Hunter's Blessing passive just really isn't worth it. You're not really going to be auto-attacking much as support. So I view this blessing purely as level 1 clear and level 1 aggression. And in my opinion, I think that the only god I would really look into it for is Sylvanas. And even then, I think Sylv is such a strong level 1 character that you probably just win lanes anyways. Like, if you're playing a lane correctly with Sylvanas, you should be able to win it with Guardian's Blessing. Especially if you're playing with an AD carry that you're either friends with or you know, or just a good player in general. You should just win lane as Sylvanas for the most part. There are some few lanes that can maybe stalemate him, but I don't think you'll ever lose a lane with Sylvanas really hard, and if you do, you probably are misplaying a little bit. So I don't really see Hunter's Blessing being that great, so I'm going to eliminate that one as well. So here are the 3 blessings that I actually think are pretty viable, and I'll go over them a little more in depth. So I'm going to start with, I guess, Assassin's Blessing. So this question hasn't popped up as much recently, but at the start of the season, a lot of people were wondering if double jungle was viable, if support should be running an Assassin Blessing along with their jungler, and kind of playing this kind of role where one of them stays on the solo side of the map, which would be your normal jungler, assassin, whatever, and then you would have the support, which could also be playing an assassin, or, you know, a guardian or a warrior or whatever, have another Assassin's Blessing, and they stay on the duo side. So if you're going to play that type of strategy, you would obviously want Assassin's Blessing. It'll clear the jungle faster than any other blessing, pretty much, and it'll give you way more sustain than every single one for that type of style. The downside of this is if you look at the passive, the 10 pen really isn't that great. I mean, extra damage is never bad, but when you look at it from the point of view of kind of pushing a lead and getting ahead, I don't really think it does as much as some of the other blessing passives do. I'd probably say this is maybe the worst passive on all the blessings as far as, supports are concerned. Even though it does help you do a lot of damage, I don't think it's really that great. I think to answer the whole kind of double jungle thing, in my opinion, I think if you can win a traditional lane, quote-unquote traditional, by sitting in the duo lane with your ADC and out-pressuring the enemy duo lane and invading their purple, I think you will get further ahead with Assassins or with Guardian's Blessing than a jungler with Assassins would, so a double jungle kind of support would with Assassins. And there's actually a couple things to keep in mind here. So one, obviously, if you start Assassin's Blessing and you take literally the enemy entire jungle off cooldown, you will get very ahead of the other support. But that's really just because you're not really cheesing, but that's just because you're invading their jungle. Obviously, if they don't have any jungle to farm and they have to split waves, obviously you're going to get ahead of support. That shouldn't ever really happen. Like, in a ranked situation or just in any competitive game or any good game where people know what they're doing, I would kind of consider that cheese in their jungle. You should pretty much never be able to start on the enemy jungle for free and not lose your entire jungle at the very least, and maybe even not even get 2 buffs over there, depending on how people play it. The other thing to keep in mind with Assassin's Blessing is you're stripping a lot of farm from your own carries. So if you're not starting on their buffs and you're starting on your own, that means your mid laner isn't getting red, your hunter normally isn't getting purple. If they do, then you're not really getting ahead, you're actually going to be behind, because if your hunter splits purple and their guardian and hunter split purple, that guardian is also getting waves, so he'll be ahead of you, and then you're taking back harpies from your jungler. Also, you're kind of eliminating the ability of your jungler to get farm and be rewarded for going to the duo side of the map, which means that they won't be able to gank or make plays or play off of the Gold Fury side. In my opinion, I don't think this style is really good at all. I think that, sure, it could be viable for a couple games, and maybe it could be viable if people don't know what they're doing, but I think as the season progresses and as people get more and more used to playing against those type of starts in Assassin's Blessing, I feel like this is a really weak choice for supports, and I would kind of look to forego it if you want to be, I guess, learning throughout the season. So I don't really think that's that great. Excuse me, I'm going to get water really quick. Moving on to Mage's Blessing. I think this is actually, again, I gotta hover it. I think this is actually the best aggressive option for the early laning phase, and the reason I say that is I go back to the passive where having that 10% cooldown is pretty much beneficial in every character. Like, most Guardians function really well with cooldown, even going to warrior support, stuff like Amma or Odin or whatever you like playing, assassin supports, even if you like playing, a Serket, or, maybe you like to play Hell or Nox or that type of stuff. If you look to go an aggressive blessing like mages, that 10% cooldown is extremely viable. It'll pretty much solve all of your sustain needs in terms of mana, and then obviously the ability damage will be very good. Again, I think this is kind of something where you can pressure out the enemy pretty well and then try to snowball a lead. I think Mage's Blessing is the second best blessing for support. I think Guardians is number 1, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I think Mages is really strong. I think in the right situation it can be very good. There are some characters like Ardio where, you can kind of abuse this because you have 4 different abilities between your swipe in both stances and your 3 in both stances. So the dash, the root channel, the swipe, and then whatever you want to call it, like the little cone heal in her Druid form on her 1. You have 4 abilities to proc this 25 damage, so it gives you an extra 100 damage in your kit, which when you hit level 2, that is a lot of freaking damage. That is like a fifth of somebody's health bar on top of the normal damage that you're already dealing to them, so you can fight very, very effectively with this. Characters like that obviously take advantage of it. You look at something like a Hell, where it can also be very good. A weird one that you really wouldn't think of it being that great on, Nike has very good early clear with this. If you run Nike and it's something like, let's say a Geb, or something that really doesn't have a great laning phase, so a Geb or maybe a Bacchus, where those gods can't interrupt your one at the beginning of the game because you're knock-up immune now, you'll be able to clear the wave super quickly. I think you do somewhere like 170 damage. It's something like that, like 170 damage with Mage's Blessing plus your 1, and that's before your AoE auto attack chain. So yeah, there's a lot of really good clear options and just fighting. I think if you want to try to go for a really aggressive early game, that Mage's is the one to go for. And then finally is Guardian's Blessing, and I gotta rehover it. So this is, in my opinion, pretty much the same as every other season with Watcher's Gift. So at the start of every season, people always go over like, oh, can you double jungle? Or maybe you can go, you know, back to season 2, can you just go Bluestone supports with like Guan Yu and Wukong and just try to play really aggressive? As seasons continue and players learn to play the map better and they learn what gods are good and what builds are good, it always comes down to Watchers, is this the best, or Guardian's Blessing is basically the best. The amount of gold that you receive for this item and how far ahead it can get you and the amount of sustain it gives you is actually just, it feels so much better to play with than any of the other blessings, in my opinion. I think when used well, this is the best sustained blessing by far. I'd say it's even better than Assassin's Blessing, even if you wanted to double jungle, because when you're an Assassin Blessing support and you trade in lane, you really don't have a good way to heal that up, whereas the Guardian's Blessing gives you the MP5, it gives you the HP and the mana back, and it's really, really strong. Also, this just stacks quicker than the other blessings, which is a huge, huge deal. Like, getting that passive online is, in my opinion, one of the keys to support right now, because if you get those 50 stacks really early, the amount of gold per 5 that you're accumulating throughout the game just keeps growing and growing. It's kind of similar to people that remember Season 1 Midas Boots. That's when I started playing. The sooner you get those Midas Boots online, the further ahead you're going to get, because you just have those GP5 ticks going forever and forever. And it's really, really valuable, and I think also just the protections it gives you and everything, it's really good. It's a really good foundation for your build. It works on literally every single support. It allows you to play off your ADC and your mid laner and give them more farm and kind of get your entire team ahead, and then you can kind of continue your build pretty fluently. The other thing it allows you to do is it allows you to make plays, and it allows you to not be punished. Something that I have a problem with Mage's Blessing is, even if you're playing very aggressively and you're getting kills, you'll often fall behind in farm just straight up because you're not getting as much gold from waves or over time. And whenever the time comes where there's either a stalemate in the game and you can't fight, or you can't win a fight, or you lose a fight, you are screwed. Like, you do not have any gold ticking, you don't have a way to really catch up in farm, and you will fall behind in your build very, very quickly. And that is not something you can afford in the current meta, where assassins can one-shot pretty much everybody. Mages are very, very strong late game, and hunters will still kill you. Like, if they get any CC on you, you will still die. And I think putting yourself in that type of a risky scenario, while in some games, if you're queuing with an ADC who is very good and you can get ahead, sure, it's great, but in the general sense, you're really going to want to go Guardian's Blessing. I think it's the best foundation you can get. So that's kind of my opinion. I would recommend going Guardians, like, we'll call it 90% of the games. I'm not going to say 100, but I think about 90% of the games it is best to go Guardian's Blessing, and it is likely that if you are losing the laning phase to Mage's Blessing stuff, that you could be picking stronger gods for the early game, especially in a ranked environment, and picking stronger early game gods with Guardian's Blessing, in my opinion, will feel better than picking whatever you want with Mage's Blessing, and that's just kind of my take on it. So that's the first part of this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was long and it was kind of ranty, but I hope everything made sense. If you have questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, and I will see you guys on the Relics and Consumables video. Thanks for watching.